My name is Harrison J. Cross, and this is Fugue 0.4.4, the release video. What are you looking at right now? This is the blog for Fugue. It's something that's been happening. If you want to see the release notes, you go over to releases and you look at this page that needs to be styled better. There we go. Present. It says it's present. It's that one. What has happened in this release? Well, what I attempted to release was a product that has better performance, and I wound up with also including a better root experience. I'll explain what root means here in a little bit. The results that I achieved in 4.0.4.3, loading the website from zero to start took 24 seconds, and it wound up taking 89.4 megabytes of storage, browser storage. 0.4.4 loads in 16 seconds, which still isn't that great, but it's a lot better. And it only takes 4.3 megabytes, which is a lot better. I'm not going to read through all of these, but I'll say the summary is the load time is down approximately 30%, off the cuff kind of uh, calculations here. And the initial storage that is used is approximately 2% of prior. So almost 98% reduction in storage usage, at least for the initial clone. And the load time is down to only 30% of that. So it went down, uh, actually 33%. It went down 2/3. So I achieved something here. And then there are a bunch of other items I'm not going to go into, but I think are worth thinking about. Whatever. There's a couple that I went into, isometric get, and um, talking about bundling versus transpiling. There are a few minor things that I will go into, and that's because icons are important, that kind of thing. So we're here on 0.4.3, and in the future this will be colored pinkish, because that's one of the changes that I made. And if you'll draw your attention to the tiny little tab bar up there for fiug.dev, you'll see that the icon is blue and pinkish, and that represents the fact that this is prod. It's very easy to kind of glance at and see, oh yeah, that's prod. And then beta, man, I hate that auto appearing crap. Beta is going to be a blue icon, and it'll maintain this sort of blue color. The theme may change in the future, but the code for having a different beta versus prod icon, so I can very quickly scan up there and tell where I am, is in place. Okay, now that the important stuff's out of the way, let's talk about root and what root it means. Previously, 4.3 here didn't have much of a root experience. That means, in my terms, it means you finish looking at the loading spinner, which we talked about, maybe it may take 15 seconds. Okay, now you're here. What do you do here? Um, it looks kind of nice, but it's kind of hard to explain, and whatever. I changed from it. And then I also had this settings kind of pop up that came in, and this was how you cloned, and this is how you list all the things that were cloned, and this is how you close out one of the things that's cloned. At which point you'll wind up right back at this root experience, and then you'll be in a terminal that doesn't really kind of know where it's at. The contrast that with what I wound up with here. After you sit for a few less seconds, um, you'll wind up at this root repository here that has things that are useful to the root of your experience, or like the core of your experience. One, there's a welcome file. For now, it's just a markdown file that tells you some of the things you can do with this terminal. And two, there's a settings file, which I'm not using right now, but I will be using in the future. Same thing with the .profile, which is kind of what you would imagine from a bash terminal, how you configure that. And I'm also not using that. And then there's the .get folder with the config inside. I'm not doing like VS Code does and darkening out the .get, but okay, maybe I'll do it in the future. Anyways, I'm not going to click on this config because there's a weird bug I'll explain later, but let me just show you what get config does. Get config, we're going to do global, if I can spell it right, global, and then we're going to set user.name to demo. All right, it saved it. There's a link there because of what I'll describe now. The editor has a cache so that after you've clicked on the config, it'll load it in here and then you'll be interacting with the cache. That cache doesn't get cleared whenever something from the terminal changes it. So if I were to click on this config first, it would show up as an empty file, and then it wouldn't show what I see is changed in using the get config. I'll fix that in the future. For now, it's something. So now that I've already made a change, I can go in there and click on the config, and I'll see that the change is there. What if I made a different change, and we said user.foo is equal to wow, and enter there. Now I'm going to purposely go to this link here. See, foo wow, it's there. Okay, that means that the system knows it's there, and it actually is there. However, I'll close this out, click on that. Yay, I think I was seeing this bug earlier. Anyways, it doesn't actually show up. And the bug that I was mentioning is, for whatever reason, whenever I click, sometimes the editor doesn't get the picture, and I have to click around a few more times to make it get the picture. I don't know what the problem is. I'm not going to fix it in 4.4. I'm going to fix it in 4.5 maybe. So there you go. That's what get config does. I'm going to bring this welcome back up. There's a lot of different commands you can go into. I didn't have get clone before. Now you can do a get clone, and you can say /hj / fiug / beta. Now what this is going to do, in contrast to what the previous system did, it's going to get the file structure and any files that it has to download in order to load that up, but it's going to wait after that. It's not going to go through and download all the files that it needs to download. So you'll need to stay connected to the internet. Whereas previously, it would just download everything, and that would take a long time. This will take 7 seconds, I think, roughly. So, ooh, wow, I didn't config my personal access token, and so now I'm getting prompted for it. Had I configured that personal access token in the get config, then I wouldn't be getting this. But I'm going to cancel because guess what? GitHub gives you free API access up to a certain limit without a personal access token. So see, that was reasonably quick. In previous demos, I've done a clone using the settings UI, and it basically took a long time, and that was a lot quicker. I can deal with 7 seconds. In the future, I'll have this little animation that like shows us that something's happening in the terminal, but I've not integrated that yet. I've just made it. I haven't integrated it in. So now that I have that, I can do a totally non-standard git list, and we'll see that these are all the repos that we have here. I can do another non-standard command, git open, and I can either type 1 or I can type out that whole /hj blah blah. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to type 1. Okay, and now we're at a place where it's like, oh, developer, you're bad. Repo open, please refresh the page. I don't understand what it's like to, or Fugue doesn't understand what it's like to like reload itself for another service or another repository. So for now, I'm saying please refresh the page. Believe it or not, previously, that's what I was doing. You clicked on a thing saying I want to load this repo, it would just say, okay, I'll set this repo and do a refresh. It's kind of like a shortcut, whatever. I'm going to do a refresh. Now I'm in that repo. This is the source of Fugue beta, and this is an example. Yeah, this is an example .profile. That's weird. Anyways, don't want to get distracted. So yeah, now if I want to close that out, get close. I don't have to put any ID or anything like that. Repo close. Please refresh page. It seems familiar. All right, I'm going to refresh the page. All right, now I'm back to this root, and there's the welcome. Okay, cool. So basically, the root is the place where you store all the settings and kind of like figure out which repo you're going to load or whatever. And it comes along with the terminal that actually kind of thinks it knows where it is. In the future, maybe I'll actually make that a little bit more like a root directory or a home directory. It's not really right now. Um, yeah, and so what came with this release? Minor cosmetic things like icon and theme for prod and beta. Um, Major performance improvements when it comes to cloning. A handful of Git commands that sort of make life a lot easier and make it so that I can hide this settings gear, which may have been confusing. So basically paring things down to, again, push the point of terminal first, do everything in the terminal, and if someday I want to go back to creating widgets and things like that, I will, but for now, I'm not going to. So it's kind of like I'm building something similar to a backend in the browser. And I'm not spending a lot of time building out components and things like that unless they matter to the core of what Fugue is doing. So you'll notice maybe there's a missing icon here for the service map. Service map is half baked. I don't want it there confusing people. There search is a little bit half baked, but I noticed that I already had and I started to hide it, but I noticed that if I do a Control Shift F, it still brings it up, so whatever. And then, I have a half baked, this is not it. How do I get to, oh, there's a way to bring up a command list. I don't know what that is, but that command list is reasonably half baked as well. And I'll leave it alone for now because, maybe people don't notice or whatever, and it's not the focus of what I'm building, and I'm just building this on my own and not getting paid for it. So, anyways, I would love to get to a point where I don't go off onto diatribes whenever I think of something. So the main point of this is 0.4.4 is mostly done, and I'm going to be releasing that to prod. And now when you go to fiug.dev, you will see instead of 0.4.3 here, you'll see 0.4.4, and you'll see that better root experience that I was talking about, and you'll have something that works a lot faster. So big improvements in that sense. And then some of the things that you may have seen before will be hidden, and I don't care. I'll just keep on hiding stuff. I don't care. I'm a terrible, mean person hiding stuff. Anyways, I feel like it simplifies things. And then just remember that blog.fiug.dev is a thing, and I'm putting notes over there to talk about what goes into each release. And I'm also putting a bunch of garbage up that's like rants and me assessing the market and scratch notes or whatever. Basically, all the notes that were living in Fugue beta and we're living in the Fugue code. I basically just moved those out to a blog, and I'm trying to sort through those and also at the same time come up with like CSS that I can deal with. I have a hard time dealing with this CSS right here because it looks kind of trash on mobile, and it doesn't call out what I want it to be called, what I want to call out. But in the future, I'll mess around with the CSS for that, and it'll look pretty and all that. I'll also probably throw away this secondary bar and just put some icons somewhere. It'll get better. It'll get better. Anyways, that's pretty much it for the release video here. There's probably things that I'm forgetting about, but I think I got the gist of it. Gist of it. Gist or gist. Great. Yeah. I think it's gist. So I'll leave it at that. And if you took your time to watch this, I want to let you know I appreciate you. If you want to give some feedback, I'd love that. I love feedback. I love talking to people about this stuff. I'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching.